And now we have our own Tracy Dempsey. She's WDI country contact for Northern Ireland. And she was one of the speakers last week at the Standing for Women demo in Belfast. She was one of the highlights. It was very difficult to stand out because it was fantastic, but you were over the top. So really, really, we are very glad to have you here. Tracy, over to you.
So I'm just giving a very brief update from the Let Women Speak event in Northern Ireland last Sunday, because it was the first one we've had on the island of Ireland. And for a bit of context, Northern Ireland is part of the United Kingdom. That's the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. So we're part of the UK. We have devolved government, but not currently at present. It was toppled recently, so we don't have a standing government. And we are also part, obviously, of the island of Ireland, and there are quite a lot of cross-border bodies, including trans and queer organisations that are lobbying and working together, north and south. So that great presentation by Niamh focused on belong to, but as another example, TENI, the Transgender Equality Network Ireland, has lobbied the Irish government even more than Facebook, and you could imagine how often Facebook has lobbied government. And that has included trying to get the Irish government to put pressure on the Northern Irish government to bring in self-ID in the north. So currently we don't have self-ID in Northern Ireland. We're part of the UK. Well, we don't have explicit self-ID like the rest of the UK. We have de facto self-ID because it is a criminal offence to disclose if someone has a GRC, a gender recognition certificate. So in practice, people don't question, and men are getting access to women's spaces all the time. We've seen Isla Bryson in Scotland was put in a women's prison, even though we don't have self-ID ostensibly in the United Kingdom. So the alarm is real, and Ireland is just that little bit further ahead of us. And we're all trying to work together to resist it. So last Sunday, as I said, was the first Let Women Speak on the island of Ireland. It should have been the second. There had been one planned for Dublin on the Saturday. But last weekend, we were also celebrating the 25th anniversary of our peace accord in Northern Ireland, the Good Friday Agreement, where the majority of us voted to bring an end to decades of bloody violence, of what was called the Troubles in Northern Ireland. So the Irish police force in the south, the Gardaí, were going to be stretched to capacity, and I believe the organisers decided women's safety couldn't be guaranteed, and that's why Dublin was cancelled. What this meant was a lot of anti-woman activists travelled up from Dublin to protest us, but also a lot of pro-woman resistors did the same. So the original venue that was announced was a place called Writers Square, and immediately some of our so-called feminist organisations applied for a permit to put on basically a cabaret. They said they'd been inspired by Let Women Speak Glasgow recently, where some drag artists organised a cabaret against hate to drown out the women speakers. So they tried to do the same thing, and when the real location was announced 2 days before Let Women Speak in a different part of the city, then some of the trans activists got very angry that they wouldn't be able to drown us out, and there was a bit of a split over there. Some of them said they wanted to protest not with songs but with bodies, and there were some memes shared on social media with images of guns and things. So I'm happy to report that, unlike New Zealand with the most awful violence, and to anybody from New Zealand watching this either now or on the playback, our hearts go out to you. That was absolutely terrifying, and it did scare off some people from attending in Belfast as well. But the organisers, who are a fantastic team of women, Standing for Women Northern Ireland, they were liaising very closely with our police force, and they had a dedicated contact. We were all sharing the threats that were being made and saying, you need to take this seriously. And because it was the 25th anniversary and Biden was over, we already had a heightened security level. MI5, the UK counterintelligence agency, had raised our threat from, I think it was from substantial to severe at the end of March. So some women were obviously worried about travelling because of that, but it did mean that the police were taking these threats seriously. So when I arrived with people, let's say, to the event in Belfast, I went past the original location that was empty, bar 2 police officers on bicycle, and we came around the corner to the Big Fish where our event was to be held, and instantly there was a sea of trans flags and a lot of noisy protesters. They had loud hailers or microphones and were just playing pop music and shouting awful slogans like Nazi scum and other kind of vicious slurs. So we parked somewhere different so that we wouldn't have to walk past those. There was definitely a lot of tension at the start of the event. People didn't really know what to expect. But the police, as you'd be able to see on any of the footage online, the police had their back to the woman facing the trans activists because that's where the threat was coming from. So some of the trans activists did try to breach the lines and get over into our group, and the police did a great job of holding them back. So it was notable as well that a lot of women travelled to be with us. We actually weren't sure how many Northern Irish women would take the microphone. We have a tiny population. It was 1.9 million in the 2021 census, and everybody knows everybody else here. There are a lot of friendships and families that are split down the middle on this issue, unfortunately, in large part due to the indoctrination Niamh has just described. So we weren't sure how many would show their face. There aren't many of us speaking under our own name for fear of abuse or job loss. But we had many more surprise speakers, surprise to us. They haven't been involved in our groups as yet. Recruitment this last week into WDI, standing for Women, Women's Rights Network, has been brilliant. So many people have got in touch. So many men have got in touch to offer support as well. And I do have a group that has both men and women. So there's a place for fathers, gay and bisexual men to organise their ideas as well. So we've got lots of different groups all trying to resist this here, and it was just wonderful to have our sisters come up from south of Ireland, come over from Scotland. I believe one woman had travelled from Canada. We had another Spanish speaker, as we were chatting about before, Amparo, who seems to be living here, so we're trying to find her. But it went from a very tense atmosphere to a really joyful and heartbreaking one. These events all are a mix of emotions because some of the speakers would move you to tears with what they discuss. And it was just so depressing to hear women bare their souls, share their testimonies and stories of their abuse, their fears, and being drowned out by the usual sloganeering and pop music blasted over the microphone. I know last week we had a great presentation by the artist Bertie Rose, and she was talking about, you know, just the conformity of the art scene, and she's completely right. The funding in Northern Ireland has all these strings on it now that promote inclusion of so-called non-binary and trans identities to qualify for funding. So we're having a real stifling effect on the arts in Northern Ireland, a real stultifying atmosphere of conformity and lack of any real creative thinking. And there were many people present at the protest who are receiving a lot of funding either through the arts or as part of the official women's sector in Northern Ireland. And we know they're in a bubble because I have whistleblowers all getting in touch with me regularly, telling me stories about what's happening in the arts. So it was the first large-scale public demonstration here, but it wasn't the first gathering. Some of the women who spoke on Sunday had already had an event at the BBC after Stephen Nolan had his Stonewall podcast where he exposed Stonewall's power in the civil service in GB. And some of the women had gone to the BBC to support that work and protest the loss of women's rights. They'd also gone to Belfast City Hall last year on International Women's Day and held up placards and spoke and engaged passers-by very well. And the official International Women's Day event in Belfast that year included a man who calls himself a woman leading a chorus of boos to the turfs at City Hall, saying that we're the real International Women's Day event. So yeah, this is the start of things actually being covered in the press. Some of you will have seen as well that we had violence in pubs after the event. So we had to disperse quickly from the venue and find a pub to go and meet at. And I had a hunch that some of the activists would phone around all their friends in various bars in the city centre and warn them that turfs were on their way. And sure enough, one of them admitted that on Twitter later. We had gone to the first pub where some of the staff members were filmed on camera saying they wouldn't serve turfs or they wouldn't serve women in suffragette colours. There was a lot of heated argument at the bar, and a barman allegedly headbutted. I say allegedly because I didn't see it, but he has been cautioned, I believe. So headbutted a gay man in his 60s, leaving him with a split eyebrow here. And we all had to leave and go to another bar where, again, bar staff told a woman that she couldn't wear a woman won't waste t-shirt. So she swiftly removed the t-shirt and stood in her bra at the bar. So I believe there are inquiries being made now as to legal action on the basis of discrimination. In Northern Ireland, we don't have the Equality Act 2010. A lot of people aren't aware of that. That only applies in Great Britain. What we have is a completely convoluted mess of overlapping anti-discrimination legislation. But because we're Northern Ireland and political beliefs have been the cause of much conflict, we actually have more protections on the basis of political opinion. So bars are specifically mentioned in guidance from our Equality Commission, which is captured, but more on that another time. They do still say that bars aren't allowed to deny service to people on the basis of their political opinion or lack of political opinion. So it's going to be interesting now to see what the legal fallout is from Sunday's violence by trans activists. But all in all, it was a massively positive event, very affirming, wonderful to meet many of our sisters from around the UK and Ireland in person. And as I said, a lot of people are now getting in touch about the declaration, about standing for women, Women's Rights Network. And I'm sure the same happened with the Countess who came up as well with placards. So a wonderful day. And to any of you who were there, thanks a million for coming. And to everyone else who watched online and commented, we really appreciate that too. It's given everybody a massive lift here.
And Tracy, do you have anything to add?
I suppose one of the key things for me that we're working on in WDI UK as well is to get a statement ready about repealing the GRA. As you know, this has been WDI's position for a long time. At Sunday's event, I talked about the live petition that's currently up with the UK government about repealing the GRA. I'll put a link into the chat here. Basically, as I said, we have de facto self-ID, and actual in-law self-ID just simplifies what already is a process where we're trusting medical experts and legal experts to judge whether a man is lying when he says he's a woman or not. Like, the whole thing is farcical to me. So we do need to get some coordinated campaigns going. We need to stop the falsification of documents in the UK, because if people aren't aware, you don't even need a gender recognition certificate to get a falsified passport or driver's license. That's a matter of policy. So if we're going for easy wins, that's one thing that we need to go after. Another campaign that we're working on in Northern Ireland that needs to be international is the Ladies Gaelic Football Association policy recently that says that men can play football with women and girls. And Gaelic football is kind of enjoying popularity in many countries where Irish expats live. So it has got an international dimension. We are trying to coordinate some template letters that parents can use to put pressure on the LGFA, first of all, to explain their decision, and secondly, to reverse it. And in Ireland, we have a very big pharma dimension, because after the property bubble that was called the Celtic Tiger some time ago, big pharma is one kind of growth area in the Irish economy. Arcus funds so much of what is happening with the TQ organisations in Ireland as elsewhere in Europe. So we need to work cross-border here and with UK and other countries where we have ladies Gaelic football. So we will have new websites going up for Women's Declaration UK and Northern Ireland, and hopefully Ireland as well. So people will be able to join in campaigns there. And for now, you can use the country contacts link on the website, womensdeclaration.com, to find us.
Thank you very much. We're about to finish, and I would like to say some of the things that were not programmed. I want to apologize for the trolls we have had on the chat, but there's some glitch because some people are able to post under a name that doesn't appear on the list of participants. So it is very difficult to expel them. We will try to find the glitch and then improve it. We'll call our tech sisters to tell us how to do that. So until we can do that, I would advise anyone, please do not engage in quarrels, so to say. Sometimes some statements are just a provocation, are just to provoke a reaction. And I think we should be able to rise above those cheap provocations and then leave it there, because if no one pays attention to them, that's the best thing we can do, and the worst thing for them is that no one will pay attention to them. So maybe next time we can do that if there's no way of technically expelling people here. I will also would like to thank very much Veronica Lopez, who was in the chat, and spontaneously, when she heard that we didn't have a translation into Spanish today, she took on her to translate everyone. So she has been writing in Spanish what the speakers were saying. She did that for the three of them. So thank you very much, Veronica. Thank you. You have been most kind. And then the final apologies, there's no one in tech today, it's me for everything, so please forgive anything that might have come wrong, because it's complicated being in front and behind the camera, so to say. So now the final messages, and I will share a slide with the details for the breakout rooms, because for some reason I cannot pass the link and the Q&A only on the chat. So, but I will have the slide for a couple of minutes, so you can note down the number and ID of the breakout room, so you can join in later. And Tracy,
I've put the link into the Q&A in response to Sally Tapnell's question.
Fantastic. So it's there already. Next week, we're going to have a very interesting webinar, because we will have Leslie Sudok and Susanne Wierling from the USA, but also we will have Sheila Jeffries, our own Sheila Jeffries, who will talk about the Earth's 8 March principles, a charter of men's sexual rights. I don't know whether you've been you caught the recent news of these new principles promoted by the same people that promoted the Yoga Carta many years ago. Sheila has been digging some information, and she will tell us about that. So I would advise everyone to be here next week, same time. Thank you, of course, to the WDI team, Anthea and Kate, discussion room coordinators today, Sheila Jeffries, Tracy Dempsey, and San Daglio with coordination, and Vaishnavi Sundar on video editing. Of course, everyone here, thank you for the sisterhood. If you would like to volunteer to do something with WDI, such as promote the declaration, social media, or any other idea you have, please fill in the volunteer form and join us. It's fabulous being a feminist, but it is better being an activist. The form is available at our website. And also thank you very much to our donors who make possible these webinars, because we have to cover costs of the Zoom, emailing platform, websites, video editing, and of other admin costs. Some women donate regularly. Thank you very much to them, but also every now and then, anything, no small amount is small, everything helps. So please join our fabulous financial supporters also at the donate link that it's at our website. So now I'm going to share my screen to show you the slide for the breakout rooms today, and see you some other time. Thank you very much, everyone, for being here. Thank you. Bye.